Hi, and welcome back to the channel. Well, it's a cold day in Georgia. All that 74, 75 degree weather, well, it's kaput. It is very, very cold. This morning when I woke up, it was 24 degrees. It snowed yesterday, and it's 46 degrees right now in the afternoon. Now, I am going to be getting into the hives, but only for a quick second. I'm going to go into the orange hive and the blue hive. I'm going to remove their buckets of sugar syrup, regardless of whether or not they've finished them. And we are going to get these hives sealed back up and ready for the cold weather, because I think it's going to be cold until spring breaks out, probably March, April. So I'm going to be doing that today. Anyways, while I did that, I thought we would talk about some of these successes and failures, and there really weren't a lot of successes this last year, but my plans for this bee season coming up. So let me zip over here to the orange hive and we'll get started. All right, I guess while I put my veil on, we can talk about my biggest failure. I guess the failure that led to every other failure that I had in 2021, and that was the single brood chamber. Not a good plan. It was a deep and a medium. But I want to operate with an 8 frame, and I wasn't sure that I could get away with it, but I've done the math, and I think I can get away with it. I'm going to give it a try this year, and I just hope it works out. So if you look at a standard deep frame, you've got 81 cells going across the top and 44 going down the side. Now, if you do the math, that comes out to about 3,564 cells per side, or 7,128 cells per frame. We have 2 sides. You know, I had done the math, and I thought for sure a single brood chamber was going to work, and mathematically it was going to work. I was going to be able to rear all of my bees in one deep brood chamber, and then let every box on top of it be honey supers, and I was going to get a lot of honey, and everything was going to be wonderful. Well, now I've seen this done before, but mostly with people with 10 frame hives, and also the flowhive people have done it. And I may do that with the Army and Navy hive and put the flow frames on those hives this year. But on the rest of my hives, it didn't work out the way that I wanted, and it actually turned into the biggest bust of a season that I could have had. The biggest problem was that they didn't finish drawing out the comb that they had down there. They had very limited resource storage and very limited brood. I really didn't get the size of a colony that I needed in order to get a giant honey harvest, and because of that, my honey harvest it was kind of a bust. I mean, I actually got more honey my first year beekeeping than I got this last bee season. Now, the season prior to this, I got 230 gallons, or excuse me, pounds, not gallons of honey. 230 pounds of honey, and that was quite a lot for my first real harvest. I'm hoping that this year I'm going to go back to the deep and the mediums for my brood chamber, and then put the queen excluder, and then start loading honey supers on top of that. I'm hoping that that will solve my problem that I created for myself last year. So for me, now I'm not saying it's not going to work for you, but I'm certainly not encouraging you to use a single brood chamber on an 8 frame setup. For me, it did not work as I thought it would, even though the math said that it would. The bees didn't like it as well as I thought they would, and it was a giant mess. So I'm not going to be doing that again. There we go. Now, I'm not smoking these girls. Probably not a good idea, but it is cold, so they should be, well, they're heated hives. This might be a bad idea. We're going to see what we can do here. The next big problem that I had in 2021 was the fact that I did not really pay attention to my queens. Now, if you remember, one of the first things I did was bring, I think it was the chicken coop episode, where I actually installed the chicken coop. I brought one of my queens that I thought were a queen cell from the other bee yard, where Pine and Teal lived, and I brought a couple of queen cells down here, and I put them in the nuke along with some bees, and I thought that the queens were going to hatch out. It would become their queens. The only thing that I did not count on, and it's something that I guess I knew that it happened, but I didn't think that it had happened, was that the bees in that hive that had all of the queen cells in there and had a new virgin queen, I did not think that they were going to stab the queen cell, and apparently they stabbed the queen cell and killed the queen that I had in that box. which left us with a entire summer of trying to get a queen to take in the little green nuke. The little green nuke was bad luck for me. I've got it sitting over there now. I think it's yeah, it was the little blue nuke, then it became the little green nuke, and I was hoping that I would get a good strong colony out of that, and it just didn't happen. And again, that had to do with me not really paying attention to my queens, not really looking at what the bees were doing, and that's something that I'm going to work on this year. I'm going to look at the bees more holistically. When I get into a hive, I want to see not just that I have a queen, but what is she doing? Does she have eggs? Does she have capped brood? Is there anything odd, off? If there are swarm cells, are they the swarm cells or are they supersedure cells, and what does that mean? Has a queen hatched? Has a queen not hatched? Could a queen be on a mating flight, and could those queen cells be dead? These are things I'm going to try to pay more attention to this year. Here we go. It's probably not a good idea, but I do want these buckets off of here. Hey girls, there you go. There you go. There you go, girls. There you go. All right, well, so there you go. So 2022, pay attention to the queens. Pay attention to what the hive is doing. Pay attention. Right? That's what I need to do, is just pay attention. All right, let me zip down here to the blue hive. All right, now let's talk about probably the biggest failure that I had all season. And I don't know whether it's a failure. I mean, maybe it's a failure, maybe it's not, maybe it's just beekeeping and it is what it is. But this year, I've been battling hive beetles up until now. I just killed one in the orange hive. I mean, hive beetles have been the bane of my existence all year now. I did have a situation with ants the first couple of seasons, and I've solved that with my ant blocks that I keep underneath my hives. And I'll show you a picture of one of those here in a minute. So if you need some of those, I think I'll try to put a link down to my Tinkercad file. If you have a 3D printer, you can print them yourself. But that's neither here nor there. I had a big problem with hive beetles this year. No matter what I did, I could not stop the hive beetles. They infested every single one of my hives, especially the ones that I have back there in the back in the woods. And I understand you're not supposed to have hives in the woods, but you can't have them all in the sun all the time, especially on this property. It's just not something I can do. But the hive beetles, the hives were strong. And when you have strong hives, you shouldn't have that many hive beetles. And Mike Berry in some of his videos said that hive beetles are opportunistic and they're going to attack weak hives the same as wax moths will. And I agree with that. My girls were shoveling them around, but I tell you what, I went back to this killing board more times than I wanted to get the hive beetles out of the hives. I'm sitting on pavers, so there's really nowhere for the hive beetle or the larva to go when it goes down there. It can't get into the ground, it's on cement. So I guess they were just flying into my hives, even though I'm using the Guardians. Now, this next year, I have a plan. Didn't I say that last year? I have a plan. Well, I have a plan. And my plan for this next year is simple. I've already started to execute the plan, by the way. See, in the tops of my hives, I have all these vent holes, and I had 1/8-inch hardware cloth covering those holes on the inside to keep bees, robber bees, from getting into the hive that way, and it allowed my fans in the hive to exhaust. Well, I believe that I have had hive beetles getting in my hive, not through the Guardians. I'm giving the Guardians the benefit of the doubt more than probably anybody should, and we'll know for sure this year, because I'm blocking every hole that is covered with 1/8-inch hardware screen. I actually covered with door screen, really fine screen, so the air can get in and out, but the hive beetles can no longer get in through these holes in the top. Something else that I'm going to do this year is I'm going to run with my bottom board inserts in. That's something that I didn't do. I left the screen bottom boards open all year, and I think hive beetles may have flown up through the bottom. Is that a thing? I don't know. I think the hive beetles may have been getting into the bottom. But I'm going to basically block every entrance on these hives with the exception of the front door and the guardian. And if I get hive beetles as bad this year as I got last year, or this last season, then I'm going to call it and say that the guardians are a gimmick. Another thing that the bees have taught me this year, and that's basically what this is. I mean, yeah, it's not like I'm doing a gripe session, and I'm not griping, I'm not complaining. I'm trying to share with you the things that I've learned, and maybe you can avoid some of the mistakes that I've made. So I'm not trying to gripe. This is the lesson that the bees taught me about wax moths as well. Now, I can tell you about the wax moths. We've seen the wax moths. I had them in my resource hive. I had wax moths. They were in there. I thought I cleaned them out, and I went ahead and I put the frames from the clean, what I thought were the clean frames from the resource hive. When I moved them into the big hives, I put them in the, remember I had the Marines and the Air Force back there next to Army and Navy. I put them in there, and wax moths within 2 weeks took over those hives, destroyed them, and I lost those hives. So I'm going to be more diligent looking for wax moths than I was last year. I really thought the wax moths kind of invaded in the fall and maybe over the winter, but apparently anytime they can get in, they're going to get in, and they're going to start destroying your comb. So let me ask you this, homework for you, and maybe some of you know, maybe there's a beekeeper out there who knows what I'm about to ask, and if so, do me a favor, leave the answer in the comments, because I just need to know. I can understand hive beetles, how they can run around inside a hive, and they're armored, right? They're like little tanks. They're not going to get stung by the bees. The bees roll them over sometimes if they can and chew off their legs the same way they do with the Varroa mites. So I understand how the hive beetles can survive inside of a beehive. A wax moth is soft. It's fuzzy. It's got powder on it. It doesn't look like a bee. It can't smell like a bee. How in the world do wax moths even get into your hive and survive? I mean, if I was a wax moth, this is the last place I would want to go. I mean, there's a lot of wax in there, granted, but there's also a lot of death in there if you're an invader going into a hive. So if you know, and some of you beekeepers out there, you do, how does that happen? How do they get away with it when another bug could not? I'm just curious. All right, here we go again. Now that I've made a bunch of noise. Okay, it's a little damp. So they've been evaporating. Okay. Hey girls. All right, I'll let you have a look in here. All right. Not many bees to see in this video, but you can see that those girls, they're pretty strong. Made it over to these frames. So we've got all but 3 frames occupied now. That is good. Right, well, it wasn't much to look at, but it was some bees in a bee video, after all. Let's put this right here. So there we go. All right, well, there you go. The very last thing that I'm going to have to pay attention to this year is something that quite honestly I've been putting off. Not because I want to be a bad beekeeper, but because I don't want to hurt my bees. And a lot of you see where I'm going here. I'm going to have to start managing my Varroa mites. I'm going to have to start doing a mite wash, an alcohol wash, and really keep up with them throughout the season. Because if you remember a couple of videos back, I think it's Where's My Bees, when we discovered the problems with the orange and the blue hives, I received a comment from a subscriber. I'm sorry, I don't remember which subscriber left me the comment, but it was the best comment that I've received all year because it called me to action. And it was 2 words. It said mite crash. Now, I didn't know what a mite crash was. So I looked it up, and that's why I looked it up, because it was 2 words, mite crash. If they would have given a little bit of context or said something, I may not have gone to the trouble of looking it up. But that may explain why the populations in the blue hive and the orange hive are as weak as they are. And that is because, after doing some research, now I'm not an expert on it, look it up please, because it's something that I think everybody should be aware of, and I've got a lot more research to do. But because the life cycle of the Varroa mite and the honeybee are kind of out of sync, when I went into these hives and saw that these hives were full of bees, and I decided I was going to treat them with mites, that was a generation of bees that was in the hive, but they were near the end of their life, and the next generation of bees was already laid, capped, and ready to hatch out. Now, when I put the apivar strips in, and I know some of you don't like apivar, and I'm probably going to go back to oxalic acid. I'm just going to do what works because I want to keep the mites off the bees, but I digress. When I put the apivar strips in, and then I checked the sticky boards, I had a ton of mites on these sticky boards. I mean, a ton of mites, and I jumped for joy. Hey, the apivar strips are working. But what I did not understand is that underneath the cappings of the next generation of bees that was to be born after the current generation of bees dies, a lot of them had Varroa on them, and they didn't make it. I don't know whether the other bees in the hives pulled them out and threw their larvae away. I don't know whether the Varroa might just disease them, infected them, killed them altogether, but I did not have a new population of bees replace the ones that were dying off, and that left my hives very, very vulnerable. So mite crash, look it up. I have a lot more research to do on it, but it's something that I didn't even hear about, never even knew about until the comment that was left for me. So Frederick Dunn, if you're watching this video, I know you know everything about bees. Give us a video on mite crash so that I don't have to do the research. I can watch you, because I know that you will do it thoroughly, and I'm going to try my best as well. But with all that said, I have one more thing, and it's not bee related. We've talked a lot about bees today, and we've gone over, I've laid bare all of my failures of 2021, but I've also told you my solutions and hopes and dreams for 2022 season. But what I want to ask you now is for some input from you, and again, it's not bee related. I am a cable cutter. We don't pay for TV here. I don't have Dish Network. I used to have Dish Network, but the bills, the $100 a month, then you call them and yell, and they make it $50 a month, but then it creeps back up to $100 a month. So we got rid of that. We have cable internet, but no cable TV. So we use YouTube and a few other free apps on our Roku for our TV entertainment around here. I do pay for a YouTube Premium. Let me take that back. $14.99 a month, but I don't have any advertisements, and that's because we like to use YouTube as our TV. Anyways, what I'm hoping to ask you is if you will share some of your favorite channels with me. Now, I'm not talking just any channel, and I don't want a long list. Maybe 1 or 2 from each of you would be helpful, but channels that you like so much that when you tune it in, you watch the video from beginning to end. And if I'm not one of those channels for you, you're not even there to see me ask you this question, but if you answer this in the comments, I'll know that you're one of the people who watch my channels, or my channel, from beginning to end, so I want to thank you. But the kind of channel that you watch from beginning to end, something that maybe I can get into, and it doesn't have to be about bees. Actually, I don't want it to be about bees. I've been to every bee channel out there. I'm subscribed to a lot of them already. I'm looking for non-beekeeping channels, and I can share a couple of my channels with you. One that we like a lot in this house is Vice Grip Garage. It's a gentleman who works on cars. He'll buy a car 200 miles from his house, and he'll go there and he'll fix it up. The car hadn't run in 30 years, and he'll drive it home. It's a white knuckle experience, but it's always fun. He's entertaining. So Vice Grip Garage, that's a great channel that we enjoy. Foresty Forest. Now, this is a guy out of Alberta, Canada. He lives in a van. I think now he's down in Utah or driving around the Grand Canyon in his van. But he lives in his van. He hikes. He climbs mountains. He's really interesting to watch. His cinematography, his editing and filming is great. A lot of drone work. It's really, really good. But we enjoy watching his channel, and we watch that beginning to end every time he puts an episode out. Another one that we enjoy is Rachel Maxey. Now this is a lady who does cosplay and sews. My wife likes the channel a lot. I like it a lot too. She was an editor, a video editor, before she became a YouTube sensation, and we enjoy watching her channel. She makes things, she creates things, and that's a good one. Another one that we watch is Hand Tool Rescue. It's a guy who restores antique tools and or builds tools that he finds a patent on, but it never got built, so he'll make those, and it's a fun channel. He kind of does it like a 1980s sitcom. He doesn't really say a lot. You see a lot of his hands, but his intro's just great. But we like that, so if that's something that you might be into, it's a good one. Hand Tool Rescue. Now, of course, we do the Veritasiums and you know, the channels like that. A lot of History Channel stuff. But as far as general YouTube creators, those are some of our good ones. Awaken with JP. It's a little bit political, so if you don't want to, just stay away from the politics. You know, it's not left or right. It cuts both ways, but you know, with a lot of crazy stuff that's going on right now, it's cutting, and it's cutting in one direction. So you may not be interested in that. And but he's a comedian, sociologist. It's a fun channel to watch. It's eye-opening. It's a kind of a way to get news when it's hard to get news. Well, that said, if you will do me a favor, leave me a couple of your suggestions of channels that you follow, I would appreciate that, and maybe I can expand my my viewing pleasure this upcoming year with your help. So with all that said, I want to thank you for watching my video, watching my videos throughout the year. I hope we learn a lot together going into the new year. I'm going to try my best, that's for sure. But again, with all that said, I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day, be happy, and I will see you next time. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'm probably going to start asking that at the beginning of my videos. So with all that said, be happy. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.